Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashok. This video is the part of LWC data communication series, where in previous video we have covered parent to child data communication. There we have seen how to pass data from parent component to child or grandchild with declarative and programmatic approach. And today in this video we will see how to pass data from child component to parent or grandparent. Now let me show you what we will develop to understand this child to parent data communication. So let me open my demo org. Here you can see we have three components, component A, B and C. C is the child of B and B is the child of A, which means all these components are in parent-child relationship. Now here in component C, we have a text box and button. So once we will enter anything in this text box and click on submit, then that text should be automatically passed to component B and component A. So let me enter something here and click on submit. Okay, now we can see hello world in both components, which means data is being passed from child component to parent and grandparent. Right, how this is working, that's what we will learn today in this video. Now before moving into practical implementation, first let's get high level idea about how this child to parent data communication works. So in this case, child component will be sender and parent will be receiver. Because here we want to pass data from child component to parent, and to pass data from child component to parent, we will use custom events. Why custom events? Because custom events is the interface in JavaScript which inherits from event interface, and by default events in DOM propagate up through hierarchy of DOM elements. Let me show you in browser what I'm talking about. So here DOM means document object model, and on browser we used to see HTML elements in graphical format, but if we inspect this window, then here under this elements tab we will see how these HTML elements are actually added on browser, and this whole structure is called DOM, and these elements are added as a tree. We call it DOM tree. So our each HTML element is the part of DOM tree, and you can see our component C is here and component B is here, right? Now if you want to say something to component B from component C, then we will use custom events, because it will propagate or run event in up direction. If we dispatch a custom event from component C, then it will go through all the elements which are in higher DOM hierarchy, like component B, component A, and all the DOM elements till the DOM root. Okay, so in nutshell, custom elements help us to notify higher DOM elements, or we can say if you want to know parent component about something from child component, then custom components are useful. So in child to parent data communication, we have to mainly follow two steps, where first we have to raise custom event from child component with a specific name. Then in parent component, we have to add or register a listener. Now what will happen when any event raised with that name from component C, then this event start raising in up direction, and we generally call it event bubbling. So first it will go to the component B, and here if you have added a listener with that same name, then that listener will get called, and after that it will raise to the component A and will check is there any listener registered for this event. If yes, then handler method will get called, and same process will repeat till the DOM root. Okay. But our LWC components get rendered into shadow DOM, and due to that, there are some limitations. We'll understand them in practical implementation. But as of now, I hope you have fair understanding about how parent to child data communication works. And now let's see all these things in practical. And for that, let's open our code editor. And here first let's create required components. So as we have seen in demo org, we will require three components. Component A and B we have already created in previous video. We'll reuse them here, but if you don't have created, then take link from description and refer my previous video, or you can refer my code files as well. We'll upload on GitHub and provide link in description. Okay. Now let's create component C as well. Okay. New component created. In previous video, we have added text box and button in component B. But today we require them in component C. So let's move them into component C. Okay. So here what we have done, first we have moved the text box and button HTML markup from component A to component C, and after we called component C into component B, and also removed unnecessary code which we written in previous video for parent to child communication. Okay. Now I think we are done with basic HTML markup. I mean, we have created text box and button in component C and called it in component B, and component B is also getting called in component A, right? So now to test this HTML code, let's deploy these components and open our org. Deployment is done. Now let's open our org. And here you can see we have already added component A on home page in previous video. Now let's refresh this page. Alright, now here we can see all three components, but UI is a little bit different from our demo org. And also we forgot to change this component C title. We'll do it later. Now here what we want to do, on clicking of this submit button, we want to pass this text box value into component B and a component A. So first let's try to pass in component B, and for that we have to create on-click handler for this button. Here we have already registered on-click listener and assigned handler method, but as of now we have not created this handler method in JS file. So let's create it. Now here what we want to do, we want to pass this text box value to parent components. So let's read it here. Okay, we will get text box value in this username variable. And now as we have discussed, if you want to pass data from child component to parent, then first we have to dispatch custom event from child component. Then we will add listener in parent component, right? So now first let's use custom event in child component. Okay, so what we have done here, first we have created an object of custom event and passed this required parameter, that is event name, and this event name should be in lowercase characters. I mean, we can't use special and uppercase characters in this name. That's why we have written here all lowercase characters. Now to dispatch this event, we have to use dispatch event method and pass this event object. Okay, now what will happen, once we will click on this button, then this handler method will get called, and here we are creating custom event object, and using dispatch event method, this event will be raised. So now any element in parent hierarchy has listener with this event name, then that will be notified and their handler method will get called. But this will only send notification to call handler method without data, because as of now we are not passing any data from here. So if you have a requirement where you just want to notify parent component and don't want to pass data, then this is enough in child component. But here we want to pass data as well. So in this case what we can do, we can pass second parameter with custom event. Here this second parameter is optional, but if you want to pass additional configurations with event, then we can pass here. This will be object type, so let's use curly braces. And here if you want to pass data, then we have to use detail property like this, and this detail property is dynamic, so here we can pass single property or object as well. I mean, if you want to pass single value, then we can pass like this, or if you want to pass multiple values, then we can use object as well, like this. So in nutshell, this detail property is dynamic, which can accept any data type. Okay, so this is how we can create and dispatch a custom event with data. Only that's what we have to do in child component. Now as we have discussed, once this dispatch event method will execute, then it will propagate this event to parent component, and if you want to listen this event in parent, then there we have to add listener. And in JavaScript or LWC, we have two ways to add listener. First is using declarative approach and another is using programmatic approach. First let's see how to add listener using declarative approach, and for that we have to add listener with child component markup here. And if you want to add listener with markup, then first we need to write on, then event name. I mean, on should be prefixed with event name. If we want to declaratively add listener, here our event name is username change, so we will write on username change. Okay. Now here we need to provide handler method which will get called when that event will dispatch. So let's write username change handler and create this method in JS file as well. Okay. This is how we can add listener with declarative approach. This is so simple, right? Now what will happen? Once we'll click on this submit button, then this handler method will get called, and from here a custom event will dispatch with this name and data. And now in parent component, we have added a listener and assigned this handler method and also created this handler method in JS file. Now here in this event property, we will get second parameter that we passed in custom event, and there we have assigned username value in detail property. So now here if you want to access that username, then we have to write code like this. Now let's hold this value into this username property, and this username property is defined here in HTML. So whatever value we will pass from child component, that will be visible on UI. Okay. Now I think we are done with code. So before deployment, let's change the title of component C. Now here let's enter any text and click on submit. Alright, now we can see text in parent component, which means we have successfully passed data from child component to parent, right? And to pass data from child component to parent, we just have to follow two steps. First step at child component, in child component, we need to create and dispatch custom event like this. And second, in parent component, we have to add listener and bind handler method. And this is how we can read value from detail property. So simple, right? As of now, we have received value in parent component, but what about grandparent? If we simply add listener in component A, then will that work? Because as I explained, that once custom event will dispatch, then it will bubble till the DOM root. So technically it should reach to the component A as well, right? So let's try to add listener on component A as well. Okay. In similar way, we have added listener on component A as well, and also reading and showing value on UI. Now let's deploy component A again and see what will happen. Alright, still we can see value on just parent, not in grandparent. Why? So here we have few reasons behind it. First is, by default custom events doesn't bubbles up. If you want to bubble it up, then we need to provide additional configuration. We have to pass one additional property, bubbles with true value, like this. And second reason is shadow boundary. As we have discussed, our LWC components render under shadow DOM, and shadow DOM encapsulate all the CSS and events under its boundary. Now, if you want to allow an event to propagate outside of that boundary, then we have to pass composed property as true, like this. Okay. So if you want an event to propagate till DOM root or outside of shadow boundary, then we have to pass these two properties as true. Okay. Now let's deploy this component again and test it. Alright, now we can see value in both parent and grandparent components, but passing bubbles and compose property as true is a good solution, or is it recommended? Then answer will be no, because in this case event will raise till DOM root, so this may cause many problems. For example, it will make unnecessary event traffic for DOM and other components, or maybe different component is dispatching event with same name in that same DOM hierarchy. In that case, it will make conflicts, right? So definitely this approach is not recommended to use. Now you might be thinking in this case what we can do to pass data to grandparent. So to pass data to grandparent, either we can raise another event from parent component like this. Now what will happen? Once we raise event from child component, then in parent component, this handler method will get called, And from here again we are dispatching this new event which will be listened in parent of this component, that is component A, right? Now we can remove these properties from child component event. Okay, so if you are listening event from child to parent and also want to pass data in grandparent, then you can use this approach. Or if you directly want to pass data in grandparent from child, like from component C to component A without using component B, then we can use LMS, Lightning Messaging Services, that we will cover in next video. Okay. Now let's see how we can add listener programmatically. So to programmatically add event listener, we have to use add event listener method. First let me write code, then we'll explain it to you. Okay, so here what we have done, first we have added rendered callback lifecycle hook, and then under this hook method we have added event listener on component C element using add event listener method. This refs.component C contains reference of component C element, this one. If you have watched my previous video, then you must know about this refs property. Now here we have passed two parameters. First is the event name without any prefix or suffix. Here we don't need to add on before event name. And in second parameter, we have to pass handler method which we want to execute when this event rage. Okay. And this bind we have used to pass current context. This is also one of the major JavaScript feature. Do let me know in the comments if you want to know more about it. Now what will happen when this component be rendered into DOM, then this rendered callback method will get called, and rendered callback may call multiple times during component lifecycle. So here we have to add a condition to register this event only once, else this event may register multiple times and that may cause many problems, right? So let's add a condition. Okay, here we have added a property is rendered with default value false, and under this rendered callback we have added a condition that this is rendered property should be false and refs.component.c should be available. If yes, then we are registering this event and assigning this property to true. So next time when this rendered callback method get called, then this condition will be false and our event will register only once. Okay. Sometimes people use connected callback to register event on component itself. Like this. Here we have added listener on component itself, not on component C element. So in this case we have to mark bubbles property to true in custom event here. Because in this case we are adding listener on out of component element, and to propagate event outside of component element we have to set bubbles property to true. Okay, but this is not recommended, so let's remove it. And also we have removed listener from HTML markup from here. Now we have added listener in JavaScript only. Now to test it, let's deploy these components again. Okay, now we can see text in parent component, but we can't see text in grandparent. So let's see what is the problem. Okay, here we forgot to add this, because here we are referring this username property. Alright, now everything working as expected, which means we have successfully registered event listener from code, but it is complicated and also not recommended, because first of all we have to write additional code, and also we have to manually remove that listener on disconnected callback method using remove event listener method, as listener will be available in DOM after component remove as well. Okay. So that's it in this video, where we have seen multiple ways to pass data from child component to parent and grandparent. I know we have covered lots of things in this video. So if you have any doubt or question, then do let me know in the comments, or you can connect me over mail as well. that you can find in description. Still, there are few more things that I wanted to cover here, but I think we have already covered lots of things here, so we will cover them sometime in future. Alright? If this video helped you to learn something new, then please help me too by like and subscribe my YouTube channel, and also share your feedback in comments so I can get feedback about my hard work. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in next video.